Good morning, everybody. I will call the meeting to order. Good morning and welcome to the June 17th, 2026 Executive Committee meeting. We acknowledge we are on the traditional lands of Treaty 4, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba. The original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. The City of Regina owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestral footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcome here and call Regina home. Some members from the committee and administration may be attending today's meeting through video conferencing. I would like to remind those who are attending through the video conferencing of the following. Please ensure your video camera and microphones are turned off, and when speaking, remember to unmute your microphone and enable your video camera. The deadline to register as a delegation for reports recommended for consideration by City Council at its meeting scheduled for June 24th, 2026 is 12 p.m. on Monday, June 22nd, 2026. A written submission is required to be submitted at the time of registration for all delegations to City Council meeting agenda items. Can I have someone move a motion to approve the agenda at the call of the chair with the additional registration list of delegates? Do we have delegates? Or there's no delegates today? There are no delegates today. Councillor Rasevich? Any opposed? All right, carried. Adoption of the minutes. Can I have someone move a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting on May 27th, 2026? Mayor? Any errors and omissions? Any questions? Anyone opposed? Carried. We will now consider item EX 26-69, Mosaic Stadium 2027 Capital Program, advanced approval. I will ask Acting Deputy City Manager, City Planning and Community Services, Autumn Dawson, to please introduce the report. Autumn?
Good morning, everyone, Chair and members of Executive Committee. Administration is seeking approval to advance the 2027 Mosaic Stadium Capital Program and begin procurement activities for two critical life cycle replacement projects. One, the replacement of the stadium's artificial turf and the replacement of the LED video display boards and associated systems. The entire cost of these projects is $10.4 million, with advanced approval being sought for $8.2 million, and the remainder being available through the 2026 approved capital budget. There are two primary reasons we are bringing this report forward. First, both assets are approaching or have reached the end of their expected service lives and require placement. Second, given manufacturing lead times and the fixed deadlines associated with the 2027 CFL season procurement must begin now to ensure that the projects can be completed on schedule. The existing artificial turf was installed when Mosaic Stadium first opened in 2016 and has reached the end of its expected service life. While the turf was planned for replacement in 2027, the new CFL field dimensions that will come into effect in 2027 further necessitates this project. The existing LED video display systems are showing increasing signs of deterioration and failure, as provided in the report. An independent assessment completed in 2026 identified a significant risk of major system failures occurring during the 2027 CFL season if replacement is delayed. Completing the turf and the LED project concurrently will create construction efficiencies, reduce costs, and minimize disruption to the stadium operations and events and the community programming. The projects will be funded through the Regina Revitalization Initiative Stadium Reserve, which was established specifically to fund the Mosaic Stadium operating and capital expenditures. There is no impact to the mill rate associated with this recommendation. Administration is recommending the approval of the report as presented, and we'll be pleased to answer any questions that you may have. With me today is Ms. Diana Burton and Ms. Melissa Coder.
Thank you very much. Can I have someone move the report? Councillor Hughes, do you wish to speak to the report?
Yes, I do. Good morning, and through you, Chair. Just a few questions. We knew this was coming eventually, and it's hitting the books now. It's nice to see that it's not affecting the mill rate. Do we have I tried to look at the details. I'm not sure. Do we have a contingency planned, and what's the process for reporting any overruns? Because it's a pretty big project. So, given the reserve is projected to stay negative for at least 5 years, how are we gonna report on overruns, and what is the contingency on that?
Yeah. Through you, Chair. Yes, we do have a plan for that, and I might ask Ms. Burton to explain what the process might look like if there are cost overruns or anything that might happen in that regard.
Sure.
Thank you through the chair. For both of these projects, there is contingency available within the amounts that we're requesting approval for. And I will turn it over to Mr. Willis to explain in further detail.
Good morning, everyone. Through the chair. So in our procurement document that we're issuing, we'll have a number of separate prices that allow us to have flexibility with the award of the procurement.
Mr. Doney?
Through the chair, just couldn't hear. Is that what?
Yeah, a little
I'll just
closer to the
repeat
mic.
it, and Mr. Willis, next time, will just talk into the mic so we can hear it clearly. But there'll be through the procurement process, there'll be multiple options to make sure we can reduce costs. And as mentioned before, there's some contingency built into it already. So there will be no cost overruns of these of this amount. And if there is, that'll be back in front of council to decide how we proceed.
Thank you. And what specific input did the Rough Riders have on the new turf dimensions, LED requirements and stuff, operational programming impacts on the other users? So I think the Rams, Thunder, Riot, Minor Sports are using it. Have they been identified and addressed? They had input?
Yeah, through you, sorry, just waiting for a mic. Yeah, so there has been conversations with the partners for sure. And Ms. Coderre has more details in terms of what those conversations have looked like and what impacts there might be to other community programs.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. The city has procured a turf consultant to help us ensure that we design our new turf in a manner that allows us to maximize the usable hours of Mosaic Stadium for both the Saskatchewan Roughriders, which are our main tenant, and for our Sasport community users, Regina Minor Football, Regina Soccer Association, you mentioned the Rams and the Thunder, who both play a game there as well. So our goal with our turf design is to ensure that as much community use can maintain at the stadium as possible, while also meeting the needs of our main user, the Rough Riders.
Thank you. And just a final one, and I'm not expecting that there's a lot of Canadian content here. These are probably American companies, but could you give us an idea of, can we support anyone local that's doing the work here, or is it all coming from the outside?
Thank you for the question, through the chair. This is a very specialized product. There are 100 and some stadiums across North America that have this style of a LED system. So we've procured a specialist consultant, AJP, Anthony James Partners, who does this for a living, to ensure that we are getting the best product at the best price and ensuring that what we purchase is manufactured all at the same time, arrives all at the same time, so that we're getting as good of a product as we can that lasts as long as it can.
And how long do we expect the new product to last?
I'm going to introduce Mr. Willis.
Good morning, everyone. Through the chair, so the turf is expected to last 10 years. There will be a 10-year warranty with that, and the AV system has a 2-year warranty, and it'll have an extension through our procurement to extend it up to 10 years so that we'll get a full life of 10 years for that system.
Excellent. Thanks for all the details, everybody. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fro?
Thank you. Through the chair, just a few questions. I think it's certainly appropriate that we take care of our assets, particularly important ones like Mosaic Stadium. I just have a few questions about how much of this work is related to taking care of our asset and was planned and understood. How much is related to the Grey Cup and how much might be related, if any, to CFL rule changes? I mean, it certainly feels to me and others that these CFL rule changes are costing taxpayers money, potentially reducing access for amateur sport. I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that that isn't the case. And if the CFL rule changes are costing taxpayers money and reducing access for amateur sport, I think we need to see what we can do about it. So I guess that would be my first question. When we look at these investments, how much of it is related to regular planned maintenance of Mosaic Stadium? And how much, if any, is related, timing or work-wise, to the changes in CFL rules and the hosting of the Grey Cup?
Ms. Dawson?
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Councillor. The timing of the upgrades really does meet our end of service life. We predicted about 10 to 15 years, and this is kind of where we're at, as well as the LED and the other accessory LED accessories. So the timing really does fit with our expected replacement timelines, but I'll maybe hand it over to Ms. Burton to explain kind of how we wrestled with the timeline.
Ms. Burton?
Thank you. And through the chair, the replacement of the turf at Mosaic Stadium was always intended to happen in 2027. It was always in the 10-year capital plan for Mosaic. It just so happened that the CFL announced their field dimension changes, and it aligned with us replacing the turf as well. I believe Ms. Kader has answered the question about the process we'll go through to try to ensure that we maintain community use of those assets. For the LED video display boards, at the time that Mosaic Stadium was built, they had a life expectancy of 10 to 15 years. So we had projected it out a couple of years later than the 10 years. It turns out that in our climate and location near a rail line, that it was closer to 10 years instead of the 15. So we now anticipate that we will be replacing those systems every 10 years.
Yeah, thank you through the chair, and I note in the package, and thank you that we've engaged subject matter experts on that. So I appreciate that. As it relates to the turf, understanding that, well, we plan to change it anyways, I guess I'm looking for some clarity as to whether the dimensions and how we replace the turf will change. And specifically, I'm wondering if the turf will be stitched in, and if so, how that might limit usage for other users, particularly amateur sport, in this case, Regina minor football, Regina high school football, collegiate sports, and of course Rams, Thunder, and soccer users, both amateur soccer, but of course we've hosted world-class friendlies in that facility in the past as well. So for some user groups, stitching in the turf is a significant concern. And so, of course, given that Mosaic Stadium is owned by all of us and we want to enhance, not limit usage, I'm just looking for some information on that.
Ms. Dawson?
Yeah. Thank you for that. Ms. Kader has her hand up, and I know that we have still some of those details to be worked out. But
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question, and through the chair. Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, we have hired a turf consultant, and regarding the 2027 CFL rule changes, yes, the field is shorter. The field goals post will be moving to the back of the end zone, and the end zone will be shorter. This absolutely is a different layout than Football Canada will be using. So Regina Rams, Regina Thunder, Regina minor football. That is why the city has preemptively hired a turf consultant to design a turf, whether it's stitch, paint, combination of stitch and paint, to ensure that we have as much community use in the field as possible. We are an exception in the CFL in the amount of community use in our stadium, and it's something that's very important to the city and to our community to ensure that that continues. So Mr. Willis and I will be working very hard to make sure that we can get a good layout for the turf.
I thank you through the chair. I appreciate that, and it's clear to me that that you'll be doing that. So thank you. Certainly, before I approve any public dollars to be used on this project, I personally would like some additional details on what that turf layout will be, and if administration can confirm that we will not procure a scenario that limits usage. I certainly have the complete faith in administration to do that. But what I'm uncomfortable doing is approving millions of dollars to invest in a turf replacement that has the potential, because it does, to reduce usage for public groups. And so I guess a couple more questions. One, has administration yet, or will we soon be meeting in person with officials from Regina Public School Boards and Catholic, Regina Rams, Regina Thunder, any other sort of relevant users? Because certainly the CFL rules have the potential to materially and dramatically reduce the ability for user groups in Regina to access that stadium. And I'm heartened and confident that administration has flagged that. But I'm wondering what in our process and decision making will provide confidence to council and through council the public that we will not end up with a turf scenario that limits usage for the public.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, and through the chair. So we will be doing outreach very shortly. We have procured a consultant, as I mentioned. We are ready to start that public consultation with these impacted users. The other thing is the way that we've procured this turf. We will not be procuring it until we have a design ready. And the other option we have through procurement design is to go with, we can stitch later as well, so that we can make these decisions. It's not coming out of the factory pre-stitched. It allows us to come up with a solution, a turf design that works for as many users as possible on the field.
Thank you. And through the chair, I trust that your process and your engagement will be extensive and sufficient. I guess through the chair, what I'd personally like to see is if there is a requirement to avoid stitching or to design that turf in a way that enhances usage and has if there's a cost implication, I guess my question through the chair is, would administration come back to council? I mean, I certainly am in favor of ensuring that as many user groups as possible can access Mosaic Stadium. If there's an additional cost, I'd like to see that. What I don't want us to see is to have our hands tied after today, where we're needing to find the most affordable option, but then that option limits the usage of user groups that are, of course, we all own that stadium.
Thank you, and through the chair, the difference between stitched versus painted lines on a turf, there would be a cost, but it's not the capital cost up front. It would be operating over time. So definitely, if that's the route we go, we would come back to council.
Okay. Well, thank you through the chair. If I understand correctly, there's a plan to consult. Yeah, thanks. There's a plan to consult user groups. There is an acknowledgement that the CFL rules may, or will rather, impact user groups, but we're going to plan around that. And if I hear you correctly, and I appreciate that, if there is a need to come back to council, you will do so. And certainly I will only support dollars for turf replacement that ensure broad accessible usage of that field. And so thanks for your presentation and all your good work.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, and to the chair. In our current budget book, it actually has our Mosaic Stadium general capital allocation for 2026 at 2.4 and 1.95. And so those were our expected costs for field replacement versus 8.5. So is that because of the rule changes, or why is there such a difference in cost?
Thank you. In the existing budget book, the turf replacement was considered for 2027, but the LED display boards were not. So both the turf and the LED display boards had approximately a 10-year lifespan when Mosaic Stadium was built. The LED display board systems had a 10 to 15 year, so it was projected a few years out. So it wouldn't appear in the budget book, but we did have an assessment done earlier this year that did put the possibility of failure during the 2027 CFL season as significant. So
it is my understanding it is only the riders that use that board, and also my understanding when the Pats needed a new clock, the Pats had to be responsible for paying for that. Is that correct?
Our lease with the riders has the replacement of the video display boards as the city's cost. They are the city's assets.
Okay. I do have a amendment I want to present, so I'll just sort of get to that, I think. Basically to have further consultation with our stakeholders, Regina Rams, Regina Riot, Regina Thunder, and high schools to develop a plan on how the field will turn over for different sports, including costs and outlining who will cover the costs and a plan for that. And then also to direct administration to consult with the CFL and Saskatchewan Roughriders on covering the costs for improvements. So this is the first city that has been asked to cover these improvements for these lines. We're the first ones. There are probably about 3 other municipalities which are affected by this, including universities, and none of them have encountered that yet. We are first on the docket, and these new rule changes are sort of looking to us. If you were to look most closely to a most comparable model, it actually would be like the Green Bay Packers, and they're currently also paying for the costs, not them. And here's the thing. We built Mosaic Stadium for the community, and it is super important that community is still included in it. I have spoken to stakeholders, and it's become clear that unless the field is able to change and not at their cost, they're not going to be able to go there, which also puts more stress on Libel Field. If Libel Field is the only place they're able to play, which is also at our costs. So does anyone want to answer what would happen to Libel Field with all of these sports now having to go to Libel Field?
Thank you, and through the chair, absolutely, we understand that if other community use sports were not able to operate at Mosaic Stadium, that there would be an impact at Libel Field. I do believe that administration is planning to do what's included in number 1 of the amendment. We are not aware of the CFL covering the turf replacement costs for any other CFL stadium. So I don't know that we would be able to find other funding.
They haven't gone and asked anyone else yet. We're the first ones up. But if you take community out of Mosaic Stadium, which we all pay for significantly, it's just entertainment.
Yeah, so our intent is fully to meet with those groups and to try to find a solution that works for all of the groups, including the community use.
We invested, the city, $73 million designed for a specific game, and this league unilaterally changed the game. And they're going to make CFL will make a big profit off of this. But part of the more concerning reason to me as a Rider fan who cares a lot about the Riders is that Toronto and Montreal fields their smaller fields are pushing this change onto the rest of the country because their fields are smaller. And so it is coming to us at our city to change our field to accommodate Eastern fields. And the deal that was signed is a $15 million deal, which is a 60% increase, which goes to the CFL for $83 million a season. If the CFL is going to make an extra additional $83 million a season off of this with their new TV deal, they should be, and they are the ones that change the rules of the game, not us.
Councillor, you
I feel that
got
they should be
35 seconds left.
responsible. Which is why I think we need to talk more at number 2. Because we are the first ones up. There's no other municipalities who have committed to paying for any of this, and same with the universities. We are first up. The others are looking to us, and we are huge value to the CFL. We are 67% of the merchandise sales. We are between 1 and 2 for the top teams. And to put the cost on us further on this isn't right.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone's got 3 minutes to speak to the amendment, so we're first up is Councillor Fro.
Thank you through the chair. I mean, I hear that administration is going to be doing consultation anyways. So, I mean, I think, I guess one is fine, but I appreciate their approach and it sounds quite sound. For number two, I mean, I think it's worthwhile to let the CFL know that their rule changes are costing communities money. And what I heard through the chair from administration is we have a lease with the riders and we're obligated to replace the turf and to take care of the asset, and so should we. So that is what it is. Saying that, I would support us reaching out to the CFL to let them know that not only is there rule changes costing our community money, it could very well be pushing amateur sport off the very field that we built in part for that league. So I'll support this amendment with the caveat that administration has built a solid plan to engage with community, and I want to note that I understand and appreciate that we're obligated to take care of Mosaic Stadium as we should be.
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor.
Thank you, through the chair. I think one thing to note, just to confirm with administration, so we heard last go around, do we in fact get $12 per ticket sold for the stadium for each Rider game?
Mr. May?
Through the chair, that's correct. Each Rider game day ticket sold generates $12 revenue for the city.
And so I know I don't think it was quite a sellout, but last weekend for a sellout at the stadium for a Rider game, do we know approximately how much revenue that would bring in for the city?
Through the chair, it's close to $400,000 for a sellout.
Okay, so I think it would be fair to say that when the Riders are successful as one of the main tenant of that stadium, it brings in significant revenue for us to reinvest into the stadium to keep it running for community events as identified. Is that fair to say?
Through the chair, it's fair to say that, yes, we're partners in this, and if they succeed, then we succeed.
So for that reason, I think I'm comfortable going with administration's well thought out plan with taking the original recommendation. So I'm not wanting to support this amendment because I think we have a fulsome plan there. And we do succeed when the Riders succeed as our main tenant right now. And it, I believe, is a partnership, since we are getting revenue that we can put right back into the stadium to make sure that we can invest and have it available for community events. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Zakiniak?
Thank you. I just first have a question for the mover of the amendment.
Can you speak up? You're really low on this end.
Yeah, I'll do what I can. My computer is not currently working, so I'm using my phone. Is that a bit better?
Yeah, that's a bit better.
Can you
Just
hear me?
talk louder into your phone.
Okay, will do. My question first to the mover, Councillor Turnbull, with your amendment, is your intention that your amendment would occur at the same, like that this could occur as and be incorporated into the administration's work plan? My assumption is it's not intended to stall anything. This is just things for that they should incorporate as they continue with this process. Is that accurate?
If possible, I guess that'd be a question for administration, if this would stall things or not stall things, and the effect, if they could do it adjacently.
Okay, sure, we can ask them. So I guess I can, just to be clear, if someone from administration can respond to that, that'd be helpful.
Ms. Burton?
Thank you. I guess I'd ask for clarification if you're approving the projects to move forward in order for the timeline to be met for these projects, which is very tight procurement wise. We do need to go to procurement right away to be able to complete them in time for the 2027 season. So if it can be in approving the projects and we do these things along the way, then yes. But if it's we are only approving the turf replacement if the CFL agrees to pay for it, then that would delay the timeline and we wouldn't be able to meet the requirements.
Okay, so I guess that question then can be posed back to the mover if she's intending to stop the process or incorporate this into the work that administration's doing without stopping or stalling things.
I think I have a question another question to Min about that, I guess, which would be, what would be I guess there's another risk of the other municipalities and universities not paying for the cost for improvements. And if we go ahead and they don't go ahead, so I guess there's a lot of maybe legal questions to be asked, and maybe should I ask those in camera maybe?
Can I wonder, Councillor Turnbull, if it might make sense to, if you'd be willing, I guess, to hold off on this amendment till next week, because then you could get some more clarity on, you know, what implications, or like what could go ahead or what would need to wait. I want to support the amendment, but I think we need some more clarity first on how this would all work. So I wonder if that would be the most efficient way to proceed, if you're open to that.
I think I am open to it, but I think I still want to have that discussion and answer any questions right now. And then
Sure.
I do think we're probably going to have to move in camera to ask some legal questions, but I'm out of time, so I can't.
Okay, so I guess, no problem. So I guess the question is to administration for additional clarity and whether we need to move in camera to get it.
Let's go over to the city manager for some clarifications around this motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I hope this adds to some better understanding. I can ask, I think Ms. Burton has indicated, but I can ask her to confirm this. We will be working with these groups to develop how they're going to work on this. I mean, I think she's clearly stated earlier this morning that we're dealing with these groups at all times. We're going to work with our community partners to find ways to make sure that this works. Because A, the turf is being replaced as per schedule, so this isn't necessarily being driven by the field change dimensions. So I think we're doing that. Can we consult with the riders on covering the costs? The same thing we can ask the riders, we can ask the CFL. It's my understanding that we already know what the CFL is going to tell us. So we can do this. I don't think that we necessarily need an amendment to do this. I think one is being worked on already, and two, that's just part of what we would do anyways.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor, based upon the city manager's clarification that said it's kind of being worked in progress right now, do you want to still move ahead with this, or do you want to withdraw the motion?
I'm going to let this discussion go right now. Like, there's some lights on. I would like to hear what they have to say.
Okay, Councillor Mancinelli? Oh, Councillor Skiniak, are you still there?
Yeah, I am. I think I do have some. I'm just looking at my other questions. Sorry, just give me one sec. I guess in terms of the amendments, I have another question for the main report, but for the amendment, I guess I just want to clarify: are we uncertain if all community use will be able to continue? Is that, I know we're trying to ensure that community use is uninterrupted, but it sounds to me like there's some lack of clarity whether there will be some impacts. And so I'm just looking for clarification on that.
Councillor Turnbull? Or is that administration?
Administration.
Stawson?
Through you, Chair. So the team has already sort of addressed that, and this is part of the work that we're going to be doing coming up, is working with these user groups and understanding what those impacts might be as we move forward in this process and get more clarity on what that might look like. We will have a better understanding if there are any impacts. We share the same concern. Absolutely, we want this to be a community space, and we want as many community organizations to continue using the space. And so that, with that in mind, that's how we're moving forward in our consultation.
Ms. Austin, just for clarification on community impact, I'm going to ask this for everyone for clarification for community impact. Are we talking about the square footage of the turf being replaced and the construction project, or are we talking about the lines on the turf? I think we have to get things clarified of what we're actually trying to call community impact. So if we're talking about a construction project, it's kind of a one and done deal.
Yeah.
It's a few months of a construction process. Any construction process will have an impact. We can't do a construction project without having community impact. So we're talking about community impact in construction, and if we're going to delay a project because of road paving, we're talking about lines on the turf.
Yeah, through you, the chair. That's a good question for clarity. So the construction, of course, will have an impact. The anticipated timelines is through the winter months. I think the report outlines, potential impacts to some of our winter things like frost and that sort of thing, which are understandable. But having the construction completed by the start of the season in May, so we're actually talking about the dimensions of the field and the lines and what user groups may or may not be able to use depending on the new dimensions and lines.
Okay, so based upon that, I'm going to ask on point number 1, can you put some clarification around the wording turnover for different sports? Like, what are you talking about for turnover for different sports? Because I'm going to say it means different things.
I guess the flexibility, but specifically with our stakeholders. I have talked to the majority of these stakeholders, and they are very concerned about not being able to use Mosaic or having things turned over and the plan and who's going to pay for it. Because it's not just having the flexibility of the field, but are we suddenly asking our high school teams or Regina Rams to be responsible for repainting the field 2 days before? And how does scheduling work when you have a high school game on a Thursday or Friday and then a Rider game on a Saturday or Sunday? And the rules aren't changing at the university level, and they're pretty clear about that. So right now, without any guidance, they are anticipating not being able to play at Mosaic Stadium. So this clarity of how this plan is going to work to serve our community groups is very important, because right now we would actually be losing events at Mosaic Stadium by limiting it to this without this clarification of the plan of how we're going to turn over to community groups, because our high school teams and our other teams don't have the funding to be doing these changes. So are we paying for it? So how does this work?
Okay, I think we're still on Councillor Suhaniak. You have about 1 minute left, 55 seconds.
Thank you. I do want to ask administration. I understand that you're planning to continue to engage with these user groups. I think it sounds like Councillor Turnbull's weighing whether or not to keep the amendment. My question is how your engagement with the community groups, it's just going to happen as the project's going. Is if there was a pause to engage with community groups to ensure that our plans meet their needs, how would that impact the completion of the project if we paused it for additional engagement at this time?
Ms. Dawson?
Thank you, through the chair. I think it's important to remember that the turf replacement was planned for 2027, and it coincides with the changes to the field dimensions and the lines. And so we know that the turf replacement, and as well as the electronic and LED replacement, is required to happen. As we work through and understand the changes and the impacts to the field dimensions and the lines, we absolutely will work through with our community groups on those impacts. We want to keep them within the space, and we know that there's limitations at Douglas. And so as we move forward with that, we will be ensuring that that mindset is put forward. I don't know if Ms. Burton or Ms. Coder has anything else to add to that. I see no's.
Thanks, Ms. Dawson. Councillor Suhaniak, you have 12 seconds left.
No problem. What I'm hearing is administration is committed to this work with or without the amendment. So I think it could go either way. I appreciate it being flagged, and I appreciate the commitment to work on these issues regardless. So I guess I suggest not moving ahead with the amendment so that they can proceed with this work either way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mancinelli?
Thank you.
Ward 9's up.
Yeah, I wish the amendment would have been dropped myself. With administration's replies so far, I first have to apologize for being 5-10 minutes late. When I got here, I heard Councillor Fro ask some excellent questions. Administration's reply, I thought that they were studying everything he asked about. Would I be wrong in my understanding of the reply? Were those all real pertinent topics you guys were deep into already? Through the chair.
Ms. Dawson or City Manager? Up top.
Thank you through the chair. That is correct.
And since then, I've heard the city manager and various managers speak to the point 1 in the amendment, and they've all been talking with the groups being talked about in point 1 of the amendment with what's at hand, trying to plan to facilitate everything in point 1. So I think point 1 equates to micromanaging by a non-subject matter expert, and so I won't support that. I think administration's doing their job, and they don't need to be micromanaged. We do that enough. For point 2, I believe the contract that we're presented with already speaks to this. I think that administration's analyzed that quite thoroughly, and trying to put responsibility of the CFL through a contract has never been really successful. But I think that I'd like administration to do exactly what they asked and keep on lobbying. At the end of the day, football for the CFL is big money. And if they don't have junior players in universities and high schools and people excited about football, well, you know what, it might as well be marbles. If they're going to change our field and not allow these junior teams to participate and make it awkward, you know, they're kind of making their own problem. And I don't think they're really going to be that dumb. So I'd like administration to continue what they're doing to find a really, you know, a good solution that covers all the users we're looking for. I'd like the CFL to do their job and bring football forward instead of trying to quash it with rules that people are kind of struggling with. And I'd like to work through this with the professionals behind me and around me who are doing their job quite adequately and have been quite in the know so far. So I won't support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Teclease, Ward 2, have some comment.
Thank you, through you, Chair. It sounds like we're trying to presuppose something that hasn't happened yet in terms of the analysis. We've got this group. If they're as good as they say they are, they're going to tell us there's ways to have convertible goalposts, which is one of the biggest issues, front to back. There's lots of solutions. I found them already with a 5-minute search. So not that hard. We just need to know the numbers. So I would say that I'm very appreciative that this amendment came up so we can have this discussion, because I didn't think that deeply about it, because I thought, well, the analysis is going to come back from this group. The challenge I think we're having is we're pissed off at the CFL. Okay? Sorry, said that out loud, but we are. And I'm the biggest football fan you'll find here. Well, maybe next to this guy. So I really want this to go ahead, but I think the biggest issue is that convertible goalpost, which is solvable. It's done everywhere else in the world. And the size of the field in terms of stitching or painting, we'll figure that out. It's a one-time cost to prepare, and then it's going to be whatever the cost is to move posts for game after game. Doesn't look like it's a big deal from my quick analysis. The challenge I think we're having is give us the okay now, and don't worry, we got it. And I'm not worried. I think you've got it. Come back to us if there's any issues. I would say let's move on with the original motion. So I won't be supporting the amendment, but I'm appreciative of the discussion that's created. So thank you, Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rodden.
Okay, thank you. I think that I appreciate administration doing a lot of the work and in consultation, because we see that on a regular basis. My concern then comes to point number 2, because in this report, it currently does not say that the riders or the CFL are going to cover any of the cost. We are fully flipping the bill, if I'm correct on that point. It's a question.
I think administration, Mr. May.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay.
This is our stadium. These are our assets to replace and refurbish.
Okay, thank you. So then on point number 2, so since we have clarity that we are the ones that are going to pay fully for completely the whole thing, then I think point number 2, in my opinion, matters, and we need to examine how we're going to consult with these organizations to ensure that we're not the ones carrying all of it, since the riders are the ones that are going to end up potentially using this field only. And I don't know when the last big event has happened and has come to this stadium since Garth Brooks, I think. And so we need to figure out how we can utilize this stadium more than just for the riders. Okay, I think that the amendment, if you're already doing one, I'm in favor of dropping that, and Councillor Turnbull, if you're in favor of that, because I feel like admin does a lot of that work already. But on point number 2, this is about dollars and cents. And frankly, I do have concerns with the reserves on this topic. Is there's no minimums or maximums. And I don't know how we talk about reserves on a regular basis. And we say, in this case, this one doesn't require a minimum or maximum. So I'm going to ask the question then is how much is in this reserve right now?
Mr. May?
Thank you, through the chair. I'll pass that on to Ms. Kader.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. I'm just trying to get to my piece of paper. Okay, so in the annual report, every year we discuss the Mosaic Stadium financial position of the reserve. Last year we put $2.2 million back into the reserve after all of our revenues and expenses. The current reserve is in a negative position, like a mildly negative position of about $200,000. And at the end of this construction, it will be in a negative position of $10.5 million. And it goes into positive again in 2035. If I could just have a moment to explain the RRI reserve, it is complex. The RRI reserve is permitted to operate in a negative position under the administration bylaw. Similar to other city reserves, a negative reserve balance does not mean there is no cash available to pay invoices. The city manages its overall cash position, and the project expenditures are paid through the city's normal cash management process. So when this building was built, it was recognized that the facility's specialized systems, like the LED and the turf, would create peaks and valleys in capital refurbishment and replacement requirements that would not necessarily align with the annual revenues generated by the stadium. As a result, the Regina admin bylaw was written to allow the RRI stadium to go into a negative position. When this occurs, the city's overall corporate cash position is used to smooth out the timing differences between when capital expenditures occur and are required and when the stadium revenues are received. For example, last year we put $2 million excess back into the reserve. In 2027, we will take out almost $10 million to pay for this. And so to pay for capital at Mosaic. So in practice, it means that cash that would otherwise be available for short-term investments is used to pay for the necessary capital work until future stadium revenues are replenished through the reserve. So future stadium revenues include things like our $12 ticket surcharge that we receive for rider games, revenues that we could receive for concerts. It includes our lease with the riders. They pay us almost $2 million a year. Our lease with SAS Sport, where they pay us over $2 million a year. And our property taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor, you've got about a minute left.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive description there. Okay, so in 2035, we're going to have a replenishment. So how much would that be replenished by, with all of the things we're going to collect, including the $12 per ticket?
Can I just
If
ask
that's
the-
too much, it's fine. We'll leave it
Yeah,
alone.
just 1 second.
That's fine.
The city manager is waiting to chime in for a minute.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just looking for confirmation from Ms. Burton in particular that to respectfully request that perhaps someone make a motion to go in camera.
Councillor, please. Let's have a motion to go Cameron. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. For the record, we went in camera to receive confidential legal advice and no decisions were made. Oh, Councillor Adams, you got about 40 seconds left.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I guess we're talking about needing to do this, but what I would like to know is where's the money coming from, since we are in the negative $200,000 already?
Through the chair, while it is true that the stadium reserve is in the negative, that's looking at the stadium in isolation from the rest of the city. The city itself has more than enough cash reserves and cash flow to pay for this construction, this capital project when it needs to be done. If we are we're going to use corporate cash flow to smooth out the fact that we need to do this work before the stadium can save up to pay for it up front.
Okay, thank you. Good answer, and thank you for that. I do feel like since we are hosting 2027 Grey Cup here, there's a lot of pressures to move forward on items, and so I think I'm still in favor of item number 2, and I would support that if we can perhaps separate that from point 1 and 2, if that's all right.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Rosovich, you had your light on. This is on the amendment only.
I'll wait till after at the amendment.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to speak quickly to item 1 and item 2. First, to the move of the amendment, are you willing to separate out the vote? Let's do it. Okay, we'll separate out the vote. I'm going to speak specifically on direct administration to consult with CFL, Saskatchewan Roughriders, on covering the cost for improvements. So I'm going to ask administration directly, what are our contractual obligations as signed right now with Mosaic Stadium and the Riders? And is this an amendment to an existing contract, or is this a potential future negotiation?
Thank you, through the chair. As we've indicated earlier, we have a lease between the City of Regina and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and is that part of that lease, we are required to, for the capital improvements that are being discussed today, so the replacement of the turf and the replacement of the LED. That is a requirement under the lease agreement that we have with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So this point here is to consult, so there isn't a requirement necessarily to come to an agreement. It's to consult with them on covering the cost. What I would say is we do have a requirement under our lease agreement currently to cover that cost, but we certainly could, as an administration, speak to them about other options that may be available, I suppose, but I would just say it may be a challenging conversation.
Okay, thank you. I see no further lights on or further questions, so right now we'll call the vote on the amendment. Sorry, Councillor Kerr, you want to close debate on your amendment?
Yes. So upon discussion, I think I would like to work on this amendment a bit further. So I think my intention will be to bring it more next week, more developed with more consultation. Something which I think probably should be added is to consult with the other affected stadiums and cities on how they go about it, especially the municipalities. So I do need to actually do some more coordination with administration and have some things done before I can bring this back. I do have a question, I guess. If CFL changes the rules, let's say like every single year, would the City of Regina always be on hook as the landlord for the costs?
Through the chair, hypothetically, I can't necessarily answer that question off the top of my head, but I would say that likely our requirement would be to provide facilities that the Saskatchewan Rough Riders can play in through our lease agreement that we have with them. So when rule changes happen, if that requires us to make a change or to do something in order to accommodate those rule changes, so that the Saskatchewan Rough Riders can continue to play within the CFL and do that, I would say there's a strong possibility that we would be required to do that under the lease that we have with them to do the capital improvements on the field.
And that doesn't have any time limitations, so the CFL could potentially change the rules. They could go back to changing the field again in like 3 years, and we would have to.
Through the chair, we do have a long-term lease. We would have to review the conditions of that lease when those kinds of things come up and make a determination as to what the requirements are. So depending on what the rule changes would be, we would look at our lease agreement, what we've committed to, and what the lease actually says, and then we would determine whether or not those would be requirements that would be placed on us through that lease, or if it would be something that perhaps the CFL or Saskatchewan Rough Riders would be required to pay. At this point, we are, under the lease agreements, we're required for capital improvements and to ensure that we have the ability for the Saskatchewan Rough Riders to continue playing on that field. So very possibly, yes, we would be required to pay and required to make those upgrades.
And does the lease specify what type of digital clock, or does it just have to be good for a CFL game? Does it actually specify it has to be a certain type, or does it just have to be comparable to, let's say, the status quo at the CFL or at the lowest quality stadium? Does it specify that it has to be a certain level or quality in the lease?
Again, through the chair, I don't have the lease directly in front of me right now, and I can't speak to exactly what their terms are, their conditions are, what that clock looks like. All I can say is that when capital improvements are required, we're required to pay for those. I can certainly get that information and look at what the specific terms are and share that. I don't have that in front of me right now.
Okay, we can look at that next week. We have a week, so like now you know I'm going to ask those questions next week. So for right now, I'm going to remove this amendment so that we can smooth that out a little bit more in the next week.
Okay. In order to withdraw the amendment, we have to vote on it if it's withdrawn, and the majority of councillors have to vote positive to withdraw the motion. Is anyone opposed to withdrawing the motion? Okay, motion withdrawn. Back to the main motion. So I think. Okay, Councillor Turnbull, back to the main motion, 4 minutes, 15 seconds. Okay, Councillor Rasvich, main motion?
Yes, through the chair. So just in our conversation so far, obviously, we're obligated to supply a turf field. And it sounds like we're obligated, according to the lease, to supply a turf field to CFL, I guess CFL regulations, CFL rules, correct?
We'll pass it over to administration. Solms.
Thank you again through the chair. Our requirements are to provide the infrastructure for the Saskatchewan Rough Riders to be able to continue playing within the CFL. And so that would be a requirement that that we would have to meet. And when the rules have changed, which they haven't changed like this significantly in a very, very long time, so it would be unexpected, but that would be something that would be required under our lease agreement is that we provide facilities for them to be able to continue to play in. And when those changes, those kinds of rule changes do occur, as we've heard they have in this situation, then we are, when we're making those capital improvements, we're required to make sure that they can continue to play on a field that can meet the requirements.
And again, I don't know the details of the contract, but if we supplied a turf field and the turf field was there, would it be, up to the riders potentially to paint the lines and to the size of the field they want for their games? Is that something, just I'm talking about flexibility, because what I'm concerned also about are like Rams, Thunder, high school football. Is that I don't know how specific these leases or contracts are, but at the end of the day, I know what we're doing today, I understand that we got to approve the funds to get procurement and get a turf field, and that's where we're at now. And down the road, as we go down the road here, I guess we can get more detailed about how we want to approach who's paying for the if it's painted lines, moving goalposts, etc. And obviously, we want to keep our community involved and be able to participate and use Mosaic Stadium as well, because I'm assuming that percentage-wise, all these other sports, whether it's soccer, football, and everything, they use it a lot more than the riders. So we have to be pretty cognizant about, everybody else.
Ms. Wilms?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. Yes, certainly, as I think administration has indicated, community investment in this field and the ability to provide for community is very important, and the city of Regina recognizes that contribution that these community groups make, and that they have a significant interest in the field. And I think, as we've heard, the consultant that has been engaged with this process is going to be considering all of those aspects, as well as administration will be consulting with these community groups to ensure that whatever changes are made are doing the very best to make sure that they can continue to accommodate those individuals. And certainly through that process, some of those questions I think that are being asked at this point will be able to be fleshed out a bit better, and with the consultant's assistance will be able to be worked out so that we can continue to meet those obligations to the best of our ability. And as I've indicated, it's certainly there is a requirement for us to replace that turf, or it's at end of life at this point. So we do need to do that in any event, and the consultant will be working with us to make sure that we do that well and are able to accommodate those groups as best we can.
Yeah, no, I agree with other councillors about everybody. I agree with everybody's concerns about moving forward. I mean, but we have to replace the turf. That has to be done anyways. So, but I guess as we go down this path, I'm hoping that we'll be kept up, updated and understanding where we're at with other organizations about, just even the costs of, lines, stitched lines, all these other aspects that are going to be coming forward, because I'm good with replacing the turf, but I want to be kept abreast of what's going on down the road so that we're not always on the hook, have to pay for line changes and moving posts and et cetera, et cetera. So could I get an answer to that from somebody, that we will be kept updated continually?
Ms. Dawson?
Yeah, I think it's a fair ask. As we know more, we'll share more, and we just don't have those details right now.
No.
Yeah.
But just knowing that we will be updated continually, because I think the average citizen in the city, we're not just, hey, of course, I love the riders too, but we have to look after the whole city and the use of that field, because I guess percentage-wise, if we calculated the amount of use of that field, whether it's high school soccer or football or what other events go on in there, and obviously the riders, in terms of dollars, yeah, they contribute a ton of money. I get it, but we also have to look after a bit of the community as well. So, so the LED, like Councillor Turnbull mentioned, are there different levels of LED that do we have to go to the level we're at now, or are there different levels of, because 8.8 million, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, through the chair, as we work with the consultant, we'll understand what works best and how we upgrade those assets.
So I read in the report as well that I guess the current LED, what we have now, the parts are becoming obsolete. So is that true?
Yeah, that's that we had an assessment done last year, and just trying to determine, how much longer we could go without doing replacement, and it was determined that there would need to be replacement sooner than later, as Ms. Burton had identified. And I don't know if Ms. Burton or Ms. Coder have anything more to say other than, oh, okay, Mr. Willis.
Through the chair, yeah, as we go out to the market for the various LED boards, we'll have various options that we can go to, either go to a higher level of LED or a lower level of LED. So we'll have flexibility with the award just to make sure we're within our budget.
So but the current LED is kind of obsolete, right? So we can't even buy new parts or anything. Is that correct?
Yes, our understanding is you can no longer get replacement parts for it. The new LEDs system that'll be purchased, it'll be available for about 7.5 years that you can still get parts for.
Okay, so I guess this is kind of a continual evolution all the time. I mean, even if once we replace this LED, 10 years down the road, it could be hard to even get parts for that. The LED we're putting, the new LED we're going to put in, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I guess that's technology and evolution, right? So, okay, that's interesting.
Sounds like the 75-inch Samsung that went obsolete yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's interesting. Okay. I guess I'm just wondering too, like depending on I guess it doesn't matter what we pick, but at the end of the day, things become obsolete. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Huh. Okay. I guess my major concern as well is
Got about 40 seconds left.
my major concern as well is all the other sports that use the facility as well. You know, in terms of the turf. So I'm just hoping that we are kept up to date because we have to replace it no matter what. I get that. So let's move ahead with that. But we need to be updated on what's going on in terms of, because there'll be future costs, and I don't think, just because the CFL says that we have to or wants these dimensions changed, that the city should be on the hook for changing the fields over so that other people can use it all the time. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mancinelli.
Oh, thank you. I guess, first of all, I just want to ask about the LED board as well. As I said, I arrived a little bit late, but I understand that board has a life expectancy originally about 10 to 15 years, and we're on the low side. Is that understood correctly?
Ms. Dawson?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Burton did address that. What she said is that we had originally thought that there would be a life expectancy between 10 and 15 years, but just due to circumstances with our weather and adjacent to the rail, when we did the assessment, it was nearing more around the 10-year end of life. And doing it at the same time as the turf does bring some efficiencies in terms of downtime and construction efficiencies as well. And so doing it now is being what's recommended.
Okay. And once again, not a subject matter expert, but I've had quite a few comments to me during my tenure on council about the board being left on all the time at night. They talk about energy consumption. Why is that like that? And I've kind of asked around and never got a solid answer. But just wondering, with the replacement, will that be analyzed? And could that be something that might have an environmental impact? I'd imagine that's a pretty good consumer of power. And is there a reason why it was left on? Dad always gave me trouble for leaving the TV on because you're going to wear it out. So is this kind of the same thing?
Thank you for the question. I'll ask Mr. Willis to answer that.
Sure. Through the chair. So the existing LED system that we have, it had to be powered down, it had to be left on at all times. There was risk of damage to the system if it wasn't. The new LED systems that we're going out to purchase, they can be powered down, so you will have energy savings throughout the winter months when they're not in use.
Oh, well, there's a really good news story right there. Maybe we will get 15 years out of the next one. I intend on supporting this. This is a facility maintenance package. The bulk of it is the LEDs. The turf needs to be replaced anyways. And then we come down to the multi-use with the lines in the field. I get it. But at the end of the day, that's football politics, not city hall politics. That's a problem between the CFL and its minor leagues. If we're going to have professional football players, they have to come from somewhere, and the CFL has to really build the sport that it makes money off of. So to me, that sounds like we should maybe be putting pressure through these associations on the CFL to smarten up. It doesn't really sound like a city council problem or something I can fix with my vote or bully the CFL, but I'm not a season ticket holder. I don't buy the most rider jerseys in the world, but lots of people in Saskatchewan do, and that sounds like something through Sport and Rec to feed back to the CFL from the people they make their money off of for what they expect. And I hope we put pressure where it's due on that side of football politics, because that's the political level this one seems to affect. It's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we are going to take our 15-minute break. So we'll see everyone back here at exactly 10:46. Okay, we're going to get back at it. So right up is Councillor Sakiniak. Councillor, are you there?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So my first question is about what was mentioned a couple of times is about the proximity to the railroad and in its impact on the digital sign. Can someone elaborate on what impact that has, the proximity to the railroad on the sign? Just wanting to understand that better.
Got a couple hands up from administration. So who wants to field this? Okay.
Thank you. And through the chair, the proximity to the rail line is really just the vibration that the rail line creates does impact the digital display boards at Mosaic Stadium. But it won't, it's not.
Okay, that was my.
Sorry, it will not impact the new display boards.
Oh, great. Okay, that was my assumption. I just wanted to check. Also, I just wanted more clarity on, so these changes because our reserve is currently in the red. I understand it has plans to be replenished over time. Right now, the plan is to use corporate cash flow. That doesn't actually give me clarity about where it's going to come from, and maybe we don't know. But what I heard is we'll currently use corporate cash flow, that this will give us less money available on a short-term basis. So I'd just like some more information about what exactly that means and the implications of us having to essentially borrow the money from somewhere else within our internal finances.
Mr. May is really excited to answer that one. Go ahead, Ms. May.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Through the chair, just for context, when we talk about the stadium reserve being in the negative, it is one of several reserves that the city has. In total, all reserves added together add up to $220.9 million. So that's where I say that corporately, this is able to be managed. To be more specific, at December 31st, 2025, just as an example, the city had $121 million in cash and $473 million in investments. So we are able to use the cash in hand that we have to smooth out the fact that the stadium hasn't been able to save up for replacing the LED board because we thought it was going to take a bit longer for it to be replaced. So we can use some cash that we have on hand today to smooth out the fact that we need to pay these bills up front, but that the stadium will generate positive cash flow in the future, which will pay it back. Hopefully
Okay,
that helps.
that's clear. Yeah, it does help. But there was a comment that there'd be less cash available in the short term. It sounds like, based on what you just told me, I mean, we do have enough money that can, it shouldn't interfere with us moving forward with other priorities. Is that accurate?
Through the chair, yes, that is accurate. The amount that we're talking about here in terms of the overall picture is quite small.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. I see no further lights on. Oh, Councillor Turnbull?
Yes. Okay. I guess I did have some questions. Sorry about the field again. So with the painted and sewn in lines, I was told that we've lost events due to sewn in lines with our attractions. But also when there are painted lines, what is the turnaround in between events?
Thank you for the question and through the chair. It would depend on the sport that was being played and on the combination of stitch and or paint that was required. If we were to fully switch over the field, so all CFL fields with the exception of Montreal and Regina are green fields that are painted to allow for them to have like semi-professional soccer teams, for example. It takes them 4 days to flip their field.
Okay, so
but it would take less if we were not fully changing all the lines.
okay, so 4 days to flip a painted field. So if there was a football game on a Thursday on the weekend, you would have to have the other football games 4 days in advance of that.
If full painting was required, yes, but I would like to note that while the riders have about 1,000 hours of use at Mosaic every year, the next largest user group is the Regina Soccer Association, which has 500 hours, and they would be unaffected by the CFL rule change, as we would just have the goal line for the soccer pitch in the CFL turf, or pardon me, in the turf.
I appreciate that note about soccer. But back to football, the Rams, when they have games, do they not pay the $12 a seat fee as well?
They do not. The Rams book 22 hours a year. They play one game a year at Mosaic Stadium, and they do not pay the $12 fee. They pay a rental fee for the stadium.
Okay, so they do pay fees to use the stadium, though.
Yes, they pay a fee.
So we could potentially be reducing some revenue by having less activities there too.
Are you suggesting that the Rams would no longer be able to play at Mosaic Stadium?
Possibly.
If the Rams instead played their games at the one game a year that they do play at Mosaic at Leibel Field, which is where they play all their other games, we would still be able to rent the field. It just wouldn't be to the Rams. We can fully rent out all of our field space.
Okay. And then, so I think we do need to figure out some things here. With our revenue, it seems to be not an issue to go into the negative for this, but we don't say that same thing about roads or pipes or sidewalks. It's not a big deal to go minus $10 million in those other reserves and balancing these numbers. But here it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. And I find that very inconsistent that we care about our reserves sometimes and sometimes we don't. I think it's very important to note that this is $10 million. I mean 8.5 plus the 1.5 for the Grey Cup, which would be the equivalent of about a 3% mill rate. In the decisions we made in the past couple weeks. So I think that is important to note, and I don't think we should put that underneath the rug. And the community owns the stadium. The average homeowner pays about $7 a month, and that is a community thing. And I do think the CFL seems to have forgotten why the Riders are the #1 team in the league. And it's because we show up for our community. And it's because together we are loud, energetic, and proud, and we cheer louder than anyone else. We are the longest running community-owned professional sports franchise in North America. And for the CFL to turn around and make things more difficult for that community to support them is short-sighted. And it's not what it means to be the 13th man. We are consistently in the top 2 for on-field success. We drive 67% of all CFL merchandise sales league-wide. And when the Riders are in the Grey Cup, viewership spikes nationally, and that matters. The Riders are not just Regina's asset, they are the CFL's biggest asset. And so when I'm asked to go back to the community that has built this team and say your taxes are going up or your services are being cut because the CFL changed their rules, I have a problem with that. They changed the rules. They will profit significantly from those changes. That new broadcast deal is worth $500 million, and yet the 13th man, the best fans in the country, the best football community in the country are the ones being asked to pay for this at the price of possibly jeopardizing some of our community teams. And that might be through operations or maintenance or inconvenience, but it is an issue, and it is coming to us. And we aren't alone, and Regina is the first city being asked to fund these changes, but other cities are in jeopardy too, like Hamilton, Edmonton, and others who are watching, and whatever precedent we set here will set the precedent for other cities that follow. So I think it is serious. So I can't support this without certainty that our community teams, our community that pays monthly for this, the Regina Rams and others who use this field will not face added costs or be shut out because the field dimension changes they had no say in. And I will bring an amendment for next week. But as it currently stands, without answers on who's on the
You have
hook,
about 10 seconds left.
and who's actually on the hook when the rule changes in a sports, why is it us? We don't make our pools deeper when water polo changes the rules. So we need
Counselor,
to
your time's
figure
up.
this out.
I'm going to turn over to City Manager, Mr. Nickel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Again, there wasn't a question posed to me, but having said that, I mean, I think nobody disagrees with where Councillor Turnbull's coming from with respect to the riders. I just want to remind members of the committee that a lot of these costs, whether they're coming from under the reserve, which is going to be replenished after 5 years, the turf costs of $2.5 million was something that was always planned in the capital budget. So it coincides well with the 2027 season and the Grey Cup, but it wasn't done as a one-off. And the remaining costs, which you've already been told, are primarily from the new screen, the LED screen. That has to be replaced because it's wearing out after 10 or so years due to the weather and the proximity to the tracks. So I just want to make sure that you are focused on the fact that this is ongoing maintenance, ongoing operations that we do all the time. When there are costs that need to be addressed, we come to council at the annual budget, or in this case right now. But these costs are not coming out of thin air. These are something that has either been planned for. We have a long-term vision to replace our assets. We own it. We do leasing to the riders, etc. This is part of what we do all the time. So I just want to make sure that members understand that this is ongoing. And we hear where you're coming from, but this is business as usual for us.
Thank you, Mr. Nickel. Mayor Chad Wyszynski.
Thank you, through the chair. I just to make sure that this is clear and clear to their residents that we're not causing any undue stress or fears of this. I think it was clearly said, but just one more time, that this is going to be managed through the reserve, through the mechanism that Mr. May had indicated, and will not impact the mill rate.
Mr. May, can you confirm this is not going to affect the mill rate?
Through the chair, that is correct.
I just want to make sure we're not giving the impression to the public that that's not the case. So I just wanted to clarify. As Mr. Nichols said, this is work that had to be done anyway. This is our asset. We've heard very clearly with our lease obligations that this is what we have to look after. This is our asset. I've heard very clearly that we have a very engaged group from administration that's going to be looking after and consulting with our community groups who are going to use these facilities. From what I've heard through the discussion, there's been a lot of thought put into how we're going to address this, how we're going to procure these items. So I have no concerns about our administration and our expertise in how we're going to address this and our understanding of the use of this community asset that is our asset to look after. And so thank you to all the work that's been done for this. Thank you. And I look forward to getting these things replaced.
Okay, thank you very much. I will have just a closing before I turn it over to Councillor Teclise here. Yes, once again to the administration, thank you for confirming that this will not affect the mill rate, and to the city manager for confirming that this is business as usual, that the assets, being the clock and the turf, are end of life and part of the requirement regardless of what lines are in what position on the field. And just to remind everyone that as Councillor Mancinelli stated, we are not here as a lobby group for minor football, for professional football, where the lines are. We are here to manage the assets to the best of our ability, and we have a Grey Cup coming next year. We're essentially putting our best foot forward and cleaning up the stadium, putting a new clock, new turf, so we can showcase to Canada what Regina can do and what Regina does for the CFL. So on that, I'm going to ask Councillor Teclise if you would like to close debate.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no.
No, you're not closing debate? Okay, good.
And I do have final comment. Is that my time?
It's your time to close debate right now.
Yeah, sorry. I think we jumped into a lot of detail today before we had the detail from the people that were paying to go get those details. And it's just an unfortunate timing issue. I think given a crystal ball or a time machine, it would be great when the CFL announced these things that we started working and talking about this back then and had some time to have some back and forth with some of the suggestions that my colleagues have made. But if you're looking at this glass half full when you come here next week to vote, we are having to replace, as the city manager said, the most expensive parts of this $8 million anyway. And so the differential will be the ability to move goalposts and the ability to change field size. That's it. So once we have the expert tell us how we can do that in the most economical way, I think a glass half full approach is to say we now have one of the most flexible fields in the league. So that gives us great opportunities to do multiple sports in the future. And with that, I'll close.
Thank you very much. Well, in that case, let's call the vote. Councillor Zakiniak, could you give a verbal vote?
In favor.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, the motion is carried in a vote result of 8-1. Those voting in favor as follows: Councillor Rasevich, Siklis, Fro, Bezo, Mancinelli, Zakidniak, and Radins, and the member, as well as Mayor Bashinsky, and the member voting against is Councillor Turnbull.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now consider item EX 26-70, Heritage Incentive Applications for 2026. Ms. Dawson, would you like to introduce the report?
Yes, I would, switching to Heritage. Okay, so today we're here seeking approval for the allocation of the Heritage incentives for 2026. The Heritage Incentive Program supports renewal, intensification, cultural vibrancy in Regina's city centre and surrounding neighbourhoods, complementing our other City of Regina-led revitalization initiatives. The city has provided financial support for the conservation of designated heritage properties since 1991, with the program last updated and approved by City Council in 2022. The city receives an annual application intake for the Heritage Incentive Program. Administration evaluates the application for eligibility in accordance with the policy and works with a heritage sector reference group to determine recommendations for the allocations. In 2026, we received 22 applications and we deemed 18 to be eligible under the program. The projects represent an investment of $5.5 million in heritage conservation in our city by private property owners. Administration recommends approval of the heritage incentives outlined in the report, and we are available to respond to any questions that Executive Committee may have. Today with me, I have Ms. Laura Pfeiffer, Mr. Adegay, and Mr. Selinger.
Right, thank you, Ms. Dawson. Can I have someone move the report? Thank you, Mayor Bashinsky. Would you wish to speak on the report?
Yeah, just one quick thank you through the chair. Thanks for this. Just one question just as an example, when we say like a window repair on kind of a unique frontage, is that repair, like the window repair or replacement, is that they have to maintain the look and the architecture? Is that part of why we kind of accept that piece? Like it's not just throwing, off-the-shelf PVC windows type of thing. It's actually windows, for example, that maintain the architectural heritage of that property. Would that be fair to say?
Thank you, through the chair. So when there is incentives provided, we do require heritage alteration application to come to us, and we review, ensure that it meets the policy and program objectives in maintaining and conserving that heritage asset. And then making sure that those alterations are in accordance with preserving the heritage character. I'm just going to see if Ms. Pfeiffer has anything more to add. Nope.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Mancinelli.
I've been pretty chirpy about this in the past to do with heritage and how the money's spent. I've chirped off about gutters getting cleaned and things being painted. I just wanted to say I went through the list. The buildings denoted, the type of incentives, the type of work, I'm really pleased. There's some really important structures here to our community and its heritage, and I am not nearly so chirpy this year. The plaque still kind of gets me a little bit. It sounds expensive, but I guess if you're going to put something out that has to withstand Saskatchewan winds and weather and everything else, it's going to come with a little bit of a price tag, so I can't even chirp too loud about that. So I appreciate what you're protecting in your community, and thank you for the work.
Thank you very much. Councillor Zakiniak, you're up.
Thank you. Okay, so I just have some questions about the funding. So it was approved that the funding would be cut by 50% during the budget last year. So there wasn't, I guess the first question is, the value in the report, it says the value of eligible work applied for was over 5 million, but the commitment based on property tax exemptions and grants is 735,000. Is that an unusual situation? Do we generally have that amount applied for and then have to figure out how to deal with it? Also, is this property, the tax exemption piece, is that new? So just some clarity about what's happening and recommended this year and versus other years, and the potential impact of our reduction in funding.
Ms. Dawson?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. So our grant funding was reduced this year. We had $250,000 last year, and it was reduced in this year's budget to $125,000. And so when we received applications and intake, we were oversubscribed. We have been oversubscribed for the last number of years. But the administration went through and we tried to allocate the grants appropriately and use tax exemptions where possible to make sure that we were providing a benefit to most of those properties that were eligible. For example, if a church applies, they're tax exempt, and so my grant might be more applicable. So I might just turn it to Ms. Pfeiffer to explain kind of year over year what we've seen as the trend and how this year compares to last year.
Ms. Pfeiffer?
Thank you. Through the chair. Yeah, Ms. Dawson is right. Every year we're oversubscribed. It's a program that a lot of heritage property owners see value in. So this year was not particularly different apart from the balance of funds that we had to work with. We work with our heritage sector reference group, as Ms. Dawson was noting, to try and understand how we can best use the resources available to provide the most amount of support. So for properties that would already be tax exempt, we focus on giving them grants. The Heritage Sector Reference Group also prioritizes giving grants to smaller properties, usually those kind of single family homes where a tax exemption may be appreciated, but probably isn't going to go as far as with a larger commercial building or a multi-unit residential building. And so I would say the overall outlay is not that different than the kinds of questions and trade-offs that we have to make every year. This year it was just a little bit different.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And also, was there only one intake period in the year? Is that, because I understand all the funds have been expended, is there generally more than one intake?
Through the chair, we've been trying to streamline that to have one intake period. And you did have a previous question that we neglected to respond to, but tax exemptions have always been an option under the program.
Okay, yeah, that's what I gathered from the response. Thank you. Now, is there also, I understand the funds have been expended for this year. If this goes ahead, is there also nothing left in the reserve, for clarity?
Thank you. Through the chair, all funds have been expended for this year, if approved today or next week.
Okay, and I guess the last piece is, or maybe I've heard conflicting things about whether cleaning out gutters was actually ever an eligible expense, and so can you just clear that up, whether it was or is an eligible expense? Because I've heard it's not actually.
Ms. Dawson?
Yeah, through the chair. This came up last year when we brought the report forward. Part of the conservation work may involve roof repair. And if you're repairing a roof, there may be itemized work within the submission, and one of those items may be maintenance of certain items, but that all relates to the roof repair, which is eligible under the program. The purpose of the program is to ensure these assets or these properties are maintained so that they can live on in our community and contribute to the portfolio of heritage properties within Regina. And so those pieces specifically, it wouldn't be just gutter cleaning itself that would be eligible, but it's part of a larger project.
Okay, and then so the 50% cut is a substantial cut. Has administration found it challenging to make these allocations with that cut, or was that able to be incorporated like fairly seamlessly?
Thank you for the question. I mean, it's really a difficult question to answer, and we certainly understand the tough budget considerations that we have to make. But as we mentioned, we were oversubscribed in the program. Certainly, if we would have had more funds to provide, we could have. But we were dealing with what we had, and we reviewed and assessed with the budget that we had to allocate, and used the tax exemption where we could to try to provide as much benefit as possible within the community.
Okay, and then finally, can you just touch on briefly, like it's outlined a bit in the report, but how does investing in heritage, how does that benefit heritage community, properties? How does that benefit some of our strategic priorities, aside from just helping maintain nice looking older buildings in the city? What are some of the other broader benefits?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that it is important to look at it as one of the tools that we have in our toolbox to, help with community revitalization. Many of these properties are within our core neighborhoods, and we have other programs that help revitalize, our older neighborhoods and ensure that properties are, maintained and are really an asset to the community. It's part of our heritage portfolio and really benefits the public realm in terms of people walking through our core areas and being able to discover some of the history of Regina, and so it really contributes to the livelihood of those neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rasevich.
Through the chair, could you explain how the tax exemption works? How does it work? So, for example, on this one here, like Windsor Tower, total eligible cost $1 million and total funding $504,000. How does the tax exemption work? Is it related to property taxes?
Yep.
And they don't have to pay. They don't pay property taxes. I guess, is it over 5 years, or is that how it works?
Yeah, through the chair.
Ms. Dawson?
Yeah, through the chair. I'm going to start, and then I'm going to send it to Ms. Pfeiffer. But the heritage program and the legislation that governs our heritage program is unique in that it allows for up to 10 years of tax exemptions. but it is dependent on the value of the work that the property owner does. And so it's not an automatic 10-year tax exemption. It really is dependent on the work that they do and how that spread works. And so I'm just going to get Ms. Pfeiffer to give a high-level overview of how that works.
Ms. Pfeiffer?
Thanks. Through the chair. So just building on what Ms. Dawson said, the incentive is always based on the value of the work that's eligible under the program. So if, for example, if a property owner were to do, I'll throw a number out there, $10 million of work, but a 10-year property exemption for them would only cover $1 million, they would max out at that. They wouldn't get the full 50%. In most cases, 50% of their eligible cost is much less than a 10-year exemption. So, for example, for Windsor Tower, it starts to come off annually. Whatever their property tax value is, they would be exempt. And once they hit that 50%, if they hit it before the 10 years, then it stops, or it's prorated the next year. So I believe for that property, it's about 6 or 7 years, and then the next year would be a partial exemption, and then they're fully taxable after that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Last night at Planning Commission, I learned a lot on heritage. So thank you again. More education, still learning. So it is important to ensure that we work for the preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of heritage properties. It's not just maintaining the properties itself in windows and doors and other items, but it is to support and maintain some of our history in our city. Revitalization and vibrancy is one of our strategic priorities. Even though we have to cut it in half, we still need to do this as much as we can. And thank you all for the work that you have done on this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tweese.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Ms. Dawson, I have like 4 questions, and I'm thinking maybe I should ask them and then you can tell me whether it's better to just submit them and get answers, because they're not leading questions. It's just information that I would like, and maybe some of my colleagues might like to hear. Does that make sense? Can I just ask them in sequence?
You're asking questions?
Yeah, I have 4 questions.
Related to the heritage?
Yep.
Give her.
Okay. After the 50% budget reduction, what was the total value of eligible work requested versus the amount being recommended? That's one. How much priority work in core neighborhoods?
Well, hang on. Let's just ask that question. So let's go one question at a time.
That's what I just asked. Can I ask them all at once? And then maybe we don't have to answer them here and save time.
Ask the question.
Okay.
Ask the questions then. So,
All right.
Ms. Dawson, how much was
Guess we don't want to save time.
asked compared to how much was funded?
I'm going to get Ms. Pfeiffer to provide those numbers.
Yeah, just give me a moment. I'm just finding my numbers here.
That was my point. I don't want to kill time.
So, as Ms. Dawson had articulated previously, even prior to the 2026 budget reduction, the program has typically been oversubscribed through cash grants alone.
Yeah.
So the total eligible cash grant requests were about 895,000, so 294,000, let's say. And the available budget that we had with a little bit of funds that were not allocated last year was about 139,000. So if we were to work solely in the cash grant amount that would have been eligible, we were about $150,000 short there. Again, we work with the Heritage Sector Reference Group to try and balance those funds. I would say it's rare that anybody gets their full 50% or full 25%.
Yeah.
And so we just manage through other avenues.
Okay, thank you for that. How much priority work in core neighborhoods was deferred or scaled back? Do we have any indication of that?
Ms. Dawson?
Through the chair, most of these properties are in our center neighborhoods or our central neighborhoods. So I think the answer would be about the same as what Ms. Pfeiffer just provided to you.
Okay. Help me with the appendices. Can you summarize the split between grants and tax exemptions by property type, i.e. residential versus commercial or multi-unit, and roughly by neighborhood? Is that possible?
So through the chair, I think that is one that we would want to take away.
Okay.
Thank you.
What has been the track record on actual costs versus estimates in prior years? And how often has administration denied portions of overruns under the quote-unquote reasonable and necessarily incurred test?
So through the chair, we would have that information available. I don't know if we have it at our fingertips, but that's something that we could provide as well.
Okay.
So you're specifically asking how much in previous years have been applied for and how much we were able to provide?
Oh, yeah, well, and how often we've denied portions of the overruns under that reasonable and necessarily incurred test. So I'm trying to get an indication of, you know, is this sufficient? It doesn't seem like I keep seeing 50% roughly come up. But it would just be nice to have it explicitly said. And I can copy and paste these questions and just shoot them over to you for
Thanks.
further analysis.
Yeah, we can provide the specifics, but I will just generally say that the program has been oversubscribed for the last number of years. And we try not to outright deny anything, but we scale back the portions of the funds that are provided to each of the applicants. So we're trying to share the pool of funds amongst all the applicants as well. There have been instances where the application that's submitted didn't fully meet the intent of the policy. For example, in this one, 22 applications and 18 properties got, well, we're recommending only for 18 properties.
Yeah. While we're at it, I just thought of something else, and that is, I'm always asking the question, compared to what? So heritage is a big deal in especially older cities with a lot more heritage properties than we have. Have we ever compared notes to figure out, are we best practice in how we do this? Are we leading edge? Are we not? Are we in the middle? When does that analysis happen? And how can we help?
Ms. Dawson, jurisdictional scan is up to you.
Yeah, for sure. So the last policy and program review was done in 2022, but we're continually talking to our counterparts to understand what's happening in other jurisdictions, for sure. Okay. This year, the work that we have on the books is to do some work on our heritage inventory, which is the properties that aren't designated, but maybe designation ready or could have potential to be heritage designated properties. So it's continually monitoring kind of your portfolio and making sure that best practices are used. As you'll note in the report, there's some pieces that we want to work on, to expand the portfolio to ensure that there's, an Indigenous worldview and for example, within our portfolio.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I don't see any further questions, so Mayor, do you wish to close debate? Okay, good, thank you. Well, at that point, I will ask the clerk to call the vote. Councillor Zakinia, can we get your verbal, please?
In favor.
Through you, Chair, the motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Just, we need 30 seconds here. Quick 30 seconds was up. We will consider item EX 26-71, Build Canada Strong Funding Agreement. I'm looking at Mr. Nickel because he's very excited to introduce the report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Build Canada Strong Fund was announced as part of the federal government's 2025 budget, and in that it provided $51 billion over 10 years across 3 streams. The direct delivery stream was allocated $6 billion over those 10 years to support regionally significant projects such as building retrofits, climate adaptation, and community infrastructure. In April of this year, the federal government requested the city submit a project to be considered for the first intake of the direct delivery stream. And the intent of this intake was to fund shovel-ready projects in time for this year's construction season. We were provided a list of previously denied funding applications and asked to identify a priority project that could proceed this year, with those approved projects to receive up to 40% of the total eligible costs. The Southwest Sewer Upgrade Project was originally submitted in 2024, and that was to the Disaster Mitigation Adaptation Fund. But it has now been conditionally approved under the Build Canada Strong Fund Delivery Direct Stream, WOW, in the amount of $29.1 million. And this request is to enter into this agreement because under the Regina Administration Bylaw, any agreement where revenue is exceeding $1 million a year needs to come for City Council approval. And I'm joined today by Mr. Gray, our Manager of Government Relations, who is the point person on anything with respect to federal provincial grants.
Thank you very much. Can I have someone move the report? Councillor Turnbull, would you like to speak on the report?
Yes, I would. I'm ecstatic that we had our successful application for the Southwest Sewer Upgrade Project after all of our discussions with the growth plan and my new passion about wastewater is very excited to find some help and some solutions here. So thank you for all your work on this and for putting your applications in for it. I do have some questions. Should I just get into my questions?
Yeah, just get into your question now.
All right. So there was a motion attached to our growth plan to ask for funding, and I'm glad that it was successful. Part of that was will this escalate the timing in our growth plan and our expected opening of the southeast? How will this escalate our timing in that?
I'm looking at Mr. Doney.
Through the chair, this particular project was always planned, and it's planned to be completed in approximately 2029 or 2030. So this will not accelerate the work. This is just providing us funding to put towards the project.
Okay, so it is at the same timeline as it was before. I know from talking to developers and the home builders associations that they did have some questions about timing and how to possibly escalate it. One of their concerns was possibly running out of lots in the southeast before this was active online. Is there going to be a period where we run out of lots in the southeast before this becomes online?
Sorry, Ms. Dawson?
Yeah, I'll take that question. So those are concerns that we also had conversations about and heard through the growth plan review. So really it depends on how, the market uptake for new residential is occurring. But we are aware that we're on the last phases of, the communities out in the southeast with intentions to start in the northwest and in the west as well.
Okay. And so in the Gantt chart of project management, are there ways we can align phases to maybe make the timeline shorter, like maybe do some conceptual design work at the same time as other areas to get this online sooner? So I know that was a request I heard from multiple developers, was to be able to start doing the design work so that it can get ahead of it versus just linear but stacking the phases of the project.
Through the chair, yes, we heard that as well. But we do know that the subject trunk that we're talking about is necessary and required before we start any of that work. And so we want to make sure that gets built into to our expectations, and then we can start some of that other design and conceptual work. And we are aware of their concern to expedite some of those pieces as well. And we're working on seeing what we can do on that. Mr. Doney, did you have anything more?
No, through the chair, that's obviously a very adequate answer. The only other thing I'll add is that this is one contract of 5 contracts for the south trunk, and so we're working towards that. And then there's more work that has to occur, which is called an interconnector trunk, to allow flow to get from the southeast to the south trunk. So this is one piece of a much larger puzzle.
Yes, that leads me to my next question about the interconnector. So the interconnector, when the south trunk comes online, I believe in the timeline, the northwest is already online before the interconnector. Is that correct? And so once the northeast pump comes online, it's taking water away from that bathtub. And so one of the other ways to suggest possibly making the timeline less would be to, once the northwest on there, is to put the south trunk before the interconnector to get it online, because you've taken out the water from the bathtub. And I know I'm probably messing up some technicalities here, so I'll let you comment on it.
Mr. Doney, can you comment on the engineering design that goes into the engineering design?
Sure. I think through the chair, I would encourage council to focus on the positive funding that we're getting from the federal government, and that we will be able to continue with this work. The growth plan obviously was approved. The Northwest lift station, I think, is what you're referring to, and so we're working on that right now. And that will have some benefits in the Northwest and allow Coopertown to proceed. So the growth plan that was approved by council is what we're following now, and we're always looking to advance projects as quickly as we can.
To clarify, I'm very ecstatic that this is going ahead and approved, and I'm very positive news. So I was just probably not using the right terminology about some of the things I've heard about escalating it, the timeline, so that we have more lots available sooner, and I will get them in touch with administration as well. But just taking the opportunity to look at that, because it's important. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about the Build Canada Strong Fund, do we have more applications ready to put into the direct Build Canada Strong fund, and are we applying for more things, or even more of the growth plan through it?
We'll probably look over to Mr. Gray for that one.
Through the chair, so we're always kind of paying attention to what's available for funding. Part of the challenge is that they're looking for shovel-ready projects in the next 12 months and in shorter time horizons. So once we get some confirmation of funding or not for the CHIF application we have for the Northwest Lift Station, that'll kind of dictate what our next application is through the direct delivery stream.
So how can we get more of those requests in? Because I understand it's a first come, first serve, and you just said shovel ready. So is there anything we can do now to put in more projects, since we're in competition with the rest of the country for some of this funding?
Mr. Gray?
I would say through the chair, we're probably not in a position at this exact moment to put in applications, and if we were, we'd be putting them in right now. So that's something we're actively working on, and it really comes down to our debt capacity, approved budget, a bunch of other factors. So,
okay. Knowing there is an opportunity, but we have to ask for it in order to get the funding, how can we be ready to ask for this? Because if we don't ask from the fund, we won't get anything.
Mr. City Manager, Ms. Dawson. Ms. Dawson?
I won. I think it's important to know that we've made a substantial step forward in establishing the growth plan and understanding the servicing strategy. And so that was a huge milestone for us to understand how we move forward with our growth. And then the steps that follow that do take time in terms of design and understanding what next pieces come online. And so we're working as quickly as we can to understand what those pieces might be, but we've just approved our growth plan, and so the next steps will follow.
Okay. Oh, well, it's my understanding we've built some.
You have 1 minute left.
We've built some excellent connections with the work we've done around the table with FCM, with all of that, and to go, and that the federal government does want to support Saskatchewan and does want to support Regina and does want to give us funding. So I guess I would we already put in a motion to ask for, like last time, we've already put in the motion to ask for more with the scroll plan. So I would just encourage that we actually ask for it, because we have been told they would like to support us, but we need to actually put in the applications in order to do that. Yeah, I'm done with my questions. Oh, and I'm very, just in case it isn't clear, I'm very ecstatic we've got this funding.
Thank you very much. We're going to go over to Councillor Skiniak.
Sorry, thank you. So this is the first time that I recall seeing in the report the federal government stating consultation obligations in relation to Indigenous consultation. So, I mean, I think that's positive. I don't recall seeing it before. And then the city's commitment to additional engagement. How will that work? Because it just says we will be doing it. So just looking for some more information about that process.
Mr. Gray?
I just want to, I'll start by just saying the federal duty to consult requirements have been in place for several years. So it just, there's a determination that they need to make for each individual project. So it might be the case that the last several projects haven't had the same requirements, but the federal duty to consult has been around for at least the last decade or so. It's just different levels of expectation on city when it comes to funding. And then maybe Ms. Kaleem can talk about the consultation process for the project. Do you have any?
For the South Trunk?
Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, we are currently going through some consultation. We have regular consultation that we do with our First Nations that are impacted by the different projects that we undertake. So we have relationships that we've built and we're looking to expand those. The federal government has some very prescriptive processes that we will also be undertaking, and we're in the midst of that now in an attempt to continue on with this project. But there may be some impacts in getting all of that completed before we can start the project.
Okay. Yeah, and just for clarity, yeah, I had assumed and was aware of some federal requirements, but I haven't seen it articulated in our reports before, or I don't recall seeing it. My next question is about the impact of the work on residents. And yes, I'm happy about this funding too, but I just want to be able to answer those questions for the residents in my area. Can you just clarify if I guess, so there's different phases, where the location of these different phases will be broadly, and what can residents in those areas expect to see as we're doing this work, which we were planning to do anyway, and now luckily we have money from the federal government, but just want to be able to answer those questions from folks.
Mr. Doney, can you talk about how you're going to move the earth?
Through the chair, yeah, so there's 5 contracts for the Southwest Sewer Upgrade Project. We've completed the first 2 contracts, which is from the McCarthy Boulevard pumping station to the south through A.E. Wilson Park. We crossed Wascana Creek already and Dudney Avenue, so we're basically just to the south of Dudney Avenue right now in those first 2 contracts. The remaining 3 contracts will go from just south of Dudney Avenue under the RCMP lands, under the golf course, and end up at Regina and Louvain area. So there's very limited impact now to the average resident for those remaining 3 contracts.
Thank you. Councillor Skiniak?
Yeah, okay, so you said with the remaining phases, due to the area, there won't be significant impacts to residents.
Through the chair, that's correct.
And then prior to the phases of those, like once those phases begin, will council be receiving a memo just with more information about that phase and what, or will there be a media release? Just what information will we receive in advance of the phase, just in case we do get questions?
Through the chair, this would be just a kind of a normal standard construction project. It is one of our major projects, so there's a communication campaign that goes along with it. So there'll be some media information and information on the website, but I wouldn't see a detailed information being provided to council unless required for some reason.
Okay, no, that works for now. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mayor Wyszynski.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I haven't beaten this drum enough, our growth plan is incredibly beneficial to us, especially in this regard. When I was in Edmonton recently for FCM, I met with the housing minister, and he used the word trailblazers when it came to Regina and our growth plan in our ability to demonstrate the investment in infrastructure and the output of housing that it can enable. So I want to highlight that, and another kudos to the team for all the work done on the growth plan. And I just want to highlight work done, and he'll be upset that I called him out, but Thomas, my chief of staff, when we were in Ottawa, and we met with the Prime Minister and the Housing Minister many months ago, it was a clear indication that it was supposed to be a takeaway to talk about how to get funding out faster. And it was directed by the Prime Minister to the Housing Minister. The very next morning, the chiefs of staff got together, and they worked very furiously to talk about what could that look like to get money out the door, and the end result was this project. And also a thanks to Mr. Gray, because the two of them worked very diligently to try and figure out with administration how we could make this work. So again, I have all the confidence seeing the work that's happening to make sure that we are applying for any and all funding that could be applicable to the projects that we have. And I just want to iterate that yes, we want to be aggressive. We want to get in the door for the funding, but we also have to recognize that we have debt limitations, and any funding we apply for, especially through the direct stream, we have a contribution to make. So it's not free money. It's money that we still have to make an investment on. And that's typically 50% or more that we have to still cover the cost of that project. So it doesn't mean that we can put everything on the table, because we couldn't afford to do all that work even if we were only paying half of those projects. So I think it's important to recognize that when Mr. Gray talks about, depending on what happens with that CHIF application, that will allow us to understand what we have. That's because that opens up some more debt capacity, and we can make some decisions around that. So I think it's important to recognize that there has to be a strategy. Obviously we want every opportunity to get as much as we can, but we have to recognize our own limitations and what we can do, both from funding, and I'm sure Mr. Doney could also talk about the execution of that work and the contractors' capacities and things there. So all that to say is, I know our team has done a lot of work. I know it's a lot, especially when programs change and requirements change. So thank you to the work, and thank you to the flexibility of everybody working to make funding. Funding coming in is great, but it does take work to make sure we can apply it and keep things rolling. So my one question I do have after all that is, when we get an injection of fundings, like $29 million, in terms of all of the cascading effects of the project, we're trying to catch up on our infrastructure deficit. Can someone speak to kind of how, as that funding comes in, what that looks like in the kind of the longer term horizon, and what that will maybe enable us to do the next project after that, and so on?
I'm going to look to the chief accountant to answer the engineering question.
Through the chair, my apologies. I didn't take it as an engineering question. I took it as a funding question.
Okay, go ahead.
You got it.
So, thank you, through the chair. As you can see on page 2 of the report, the $72 million of project work that was left to go on this had several funding streams that were being used to pay for this. Now we can now replace some or portions of those funding streams. So long story short, it will help us free up some general utility reserve room that we wouldn't have had before. And as we build out the 2027 to 2031 5-year capital plan, we'll keep this in mind and see what we can advance that maybe we would have had to wait before. But that'll be between the experts in terms of what capital needs to come first and when.
Perfect. Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. May. And then with that, I just want to confirm, again, all great news, still requires planning, engineering, procurement if we were to advance other projects. So there's still work to be done before we can advance projects. Is that fair to say?
Mr. Doney?
Through the chair, that is fair to say, and this one was unique because we were obviously progressing with it. So the reason we were able to take advantage of it is because council has approved us to advance these projects and do the design work and be ready for it. So it worked out very well to receive the funding, but any new funding, of course, we have to do the design work to get ready for it.
And sorry, that made me think of just one more question. Does approving a 2-year budget, does that enable more flexibility in terms of working projects, or does the way we do our 2-year budgets kind of limit us still?
Mr. Doney?
Through the chair, providing multi-year budget approvals gives the administration more flexibility. And so that's one option. The other option is sometimes we come forward with advanced approval for capital projects, and that's another way to, if we can't move towards multi-year funding consistently, then we can advance capital approvals. So that's something we've done in the past and we'll likely do in the future.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for all the work, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Rasvich. Councilor Rasvich.
Through the chair, just wondering, with this upgrade in the southwest, does that help the southeast, like, Whitmore Park and those areas? Does it alleviate some pressure, or, because I just recently got an email from a resident about, sewer backup, and wondering if that helps, take some pressure off in the south, I guess, in the southeast.
I think he's talking about capacity, not pipe pressure.
Capacity, yeah.
Through the chair, yes, the Southwest Sewer Upgrade Project will help reduce the risk of wastewater sewer backups and wastewater going to the creek. It'll help in the southwest, and we would classify kind of anything east of Louvain and in the Ring Road, kind of in that southwest. And then we would do further upgrades, like we mentioned, the interconnector trunk. There's the ability to provide some benefits to the southeast also. So it's one system, and this will have benefit throughout many areas of the city.
Yeah, so there will be some benefit, I guess, in the southeast, I guess what you're saying, right? Some?
Through the chair, yeah. Over the long term, there'll be benefits to all areas of the city. This is one piece of that larger puzzle. And so when we come forward with utility budget and growth plan, it's important that council understands it's one system, and we need to continue advancing the work. So once we're done the southwest sewer upgrade, work within Lakeview and further into the southwest will occur.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I see no further questions, so I'm going to look to Councillor Turnbull if you would like to close debate.
You remembered. Okay. I think this is wonderful. I also really want to acknowledge the relationship building that is happening between administration and council and I guess in this case, the federal government, to work through things that maybe weren't available to us previously. And I do understand the balancing of things. I also want to make sure that we take advantage of opportunities that are in front of us as things move and change. So I guess if that means, I think this actually goes on to our next motion, making sure more things are in design development or shovel ready and ready to go so that we are in a position to take advantage of programs. I think that would be my biggest takeaway, is if we could position ourselves in the best possible way so that when these opportunities come up, or there is an opportunity right now, to be able to take advantage of it. It goes a long way when, and we should be doing that. So thank you for your work on that, and I'm very happy about this.
Okay, with that, I will ask clerk to start the vote. Councillor Zitiniak? Just looking for a verbal.
Sorry, is that for me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, in favor.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving right along to water, wastewater. We will now consider item EX 26-72 wastewater and stormwater bylaw number 2016-24 proposed amendment. I will ask Deputy City Manager and Chief Operations Curtis Stoney to please introduce the report.
Through the chair. So we just spoke about wastewater quantity. Now we're going to talk about wastewater quality. So in 2016, the city upgraded the wastewater treatment plant to a more advanced system, allowing us to meet stricter environmental standards and improve water quality downstream of Regina. At the same time, the city replaced the old sewer bylaw with the current wastewater and stormwater bylaw to protect that infrastructure. Since then, administration has gained valuable experience that has informed the updates before you today. A key focus is improving how hauled wastewater is managed. The proposed changes introduce stronger tracking and record keeping to better prevent and investigate improper discharges. We're also proposing fee updates at the hauled wastewater station to reflect industry feedback, improve cost recovery, and encourage greater use. Together, these changes support compliance and long-term sustainability of our wastewater system. We are available to answer any questions you may have today.
Thank you very much. I'm going to look to my colleagues to see if someone wants to move the report. Councillor Turnbull, do you want to speak on the report?
I'm just here for all the wastewater. So, yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. And leading off of our last motion of how we have to be design ready to take advantage of opportunities and doing this, I think I support this. So I'll leave the rest for closing if there is any.
Thank you very much. Does my colleagues have any questions? Looks like it's pretty slam dunk down me with the flush here. Councillor Turnbull, would you like to close debate?
No, I'm good.
Well, that was easy. We'll move or ask the clerk to start the vote.
Through you, Chair, the motion is carried unanimously. Councillor Zakidniak has left the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now talk about more pipes and pumps. We will now consider item EX 26-73 North Pumping Station Pump 1 and 2 Replacement Project. I will ask Deputy City Manager and Chief Operations Curtis Donley to please introduce the pump, or report, sorry.
Through the chair. So now we're talking about drinking water. Administration is seeking City Council's approval for consulting services exceeding $750,000 to support the replacement of 2 pumps at the city's North Water Pumping Station. This pumping station was built in 1963 and is Regina's primary water pumping station. Ongoing upgrades have extended its life, and pump 1 and 2 are the final components needing replacement. The new pumps will fit the existing space, will improve efficiency, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This work is essential to maintain water reliability and extend the station's service life. It also includes consulting upgrades for control systems, backup power supply, and diesel tank to ensure the operations during power outages. The consulting work for this project is expected to exceed $750,000, and that is why we are before Council to seek your approval. We are able to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I will look to any engineers in the room that want to introduce the report. Oh, Mayor, so go ahead. Would you like to speak about pipes and pumps?
I mean, I could at length, obviously, very exciting, but no, just very much going through the report, looking at the timing, appreciate the report, appreciate the information and the criticality of all the work that we have to do here. So very much in favor of making sure you guys can get at it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Look to my colleagues if they have any questions on the report. All good. Okay, Mayor, would you like to close the debate? Okay, perfect. I will ask the clerk to start the vote.
Through you, Chair, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving right along, we will now consider item EX 26-74 lease of Curry Field to the Regina Red Sox. I will ask. Just hang on a second. Is Mr. Jedlick in the room? Hang on. We're going to take a 2-minute pause here. Thank you very much. Just back to the lease of Curry Field, I will ask Director of Land, Real Estate, and Economic Development, Chad Jedlick, to please introduce the report. It's on the lease of Curry Field. Thank you.
Through the chair, in 2024, City Council directed administration to enter into a long-term lease agreement with the Regina Red Sox for Curry Field. Council approved the key terms for a 25-year lease with an option to renew for an additional 25 years. While the final lease was being negotiated, the organization was sold into private ownership. The key terms approved by Council did not contemplate a sale, and therefore we are returning to Council to approve the new lessee, as well as other terms that are proposed to be amended since the original approval. The new lessee is proposed to be the Regina Red Sox General Partnership, Inc., a private entity. The other proposed changes in the report include a shortened renewal term from 25 years to 10 years, a change to the clause dealing with reimbursement of permitted capital investments should a new facility be built in Regina. The reimbursement is proposed to apply to any location in the city rather than just Taylor Field or the Yards. A cap on the value of improvements that will be reimbursed in the event of a new stadium being built has been added. The location of the proposed digital billboard included in the agreement has been moved because it could not be accommodated in the original location. And the lessee will now have an ability to assign the agreement within related companies. Administration recommends approval of the report and is available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I will move to my colleagues if someone wants to. Councillor Mancinelli, do you wish to move the report?
Sure.
Do you wish to speak on the report?
Yeah, sure. I got a question. The outcomes from the clause change. Could I just get a little bit of definition for those?
Mr. Jedlick?
Through the chair. So I'll highlight the 5 that were discussed in the introduction, but I may turn it over to colleagues who are more involved with the negotiation. So the original terms included an initial term of 25 years with a 25-year option to renew. That 25-year option has been reduced to 10 years. The clause dealing with the reimbursement of capital investments should a new facility be built in Regina. The reimbursement was proposed originally to only apply if it was at Taylor Field or the Yards. Since this report originally went forward, Council has elected to proceed in a different direction with Taylor Field, making it residential, and on the Yards going out through a RFP process. Recognizing that neither of those may be available, the concept was that if the Red Sox do build a stadium within the city limits, we felt it reasonable to maintain that reimbursement of permitted capital investments. The original terms did not have a cap on the value of improvements that would be reimbursed. And so there's more clarity added around what would be considered reimbursable and what wouldn't be, as well as how those reimbursements would be depreciated over time. The 4th is the location of proposed billboard. Within the agreement, the Red Sox would have been permitted to erect a digital billboard because of bylaw and safety concerns. The location that was selected was not, could not be approved by the city, and so we looked through other city lands to find one that would allow for a billboard to be erected that would have similar traffic counts, which is how value is determined on billboards. And then the final one is that the original agreement didn't have any sort of ability to sign the lease, and so within this one, there's an ability for the lessee to assign the agreement to any of the companies related to the original lessee. I don't know if there's any other clarifications that.
No, I guess I just was a little bit deeper. I was hoping to get a little bit more on the cap and how that changed, but it's in the report, so I get it. Okay. I'm happy to support this. I remember the original version. It's always been a little bit controversial, but to support sport, culture, and recreation in our city is important. I think this is well thought out, and I think a lot of people enjoy it, so I can see why the change was made. any considerations from administration with the change from not-for-profit to privately owned? Did that kind of tilt areas or change any viewpoints through these negotiations?
I'll start and then look for my colleagues to add to it. But there is a change from for-profit to, or from not-for-profit to for-profit, but the use that's being permitted there remains the same, and the team remains the same, and the profitability of that operation remains the same. And so did not view that as a significant change, but perhaps I'll turn it over. And there doesn't appear to be anything more to add. So.
Okay, thank you. And it kind of down the same line, I went through the same thought pattern and was wondering if I was missing something. So if you had no extra considerations, I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Couple questions, one on lease protections and one on the alcohol bylaw change. I'll start with the booze one first. Do we have to do some sort of analysis? And if so, what did we do on safety, noise, parking, and neighbor impacts from removing the 6 event alcohol limit? And what new controls are included, if any?
Mr. Jedlik?
I'll refer this question to Ms. Kader.
Thank you for the question through the chair. In order for the city to allow alcohol to be consumed on our property, we need to provide a letter of consent to SLGA. There are different considerations for, like, we do that on a one-off case. Like, for example, if, you know, when there was Folk Fest or for out in the park, we provide a single day or 2-day liquor permit. There are different requirements for both Mosaic Stadium and for Curry Field, and so this just allows the Red Sox to like, they will still require a liquor permit. All the requirements around that are still set by SLGA. This is just a different mechanism. Councillor, do you have anything to add?
The Curry Field alcohol bylaw currently allows the service or allows alcohol to be served at any game plus 6 events. So the removal of the 6 event cap isn't related to games. Those will still be the same number as before. The reason why we have to have the bylaw is because of SLGA regulation requires approval from council when there's a stadium involved. The city, as my colleague said, does approve liquor permits at other facilities. It's just the fact that this is a sports stadium kind of thing that requires the bylaw, which is different from other city facilities.
Okay, well, thank you. Cheers to the Red Sox. Lease protections. You were kind of bouncing around a little bit. I think Councillor Mancinelli asked some of these, so I hope this isn't repetitive because I couldn't find it in the documents. What are the key protections that we have in the lease on maintenance, insurance, revenue sharing, investment reimbursement, and early termination, for example, for a new stadium?
Mr. Jedlik?
I'd like to refer these over to Ms. Kader, but if you could perhaps just repeat the...
Sure. The first one was maintenance. Second was insurance. Third was revenue sharing. Fourth was investment reimbursement. And fifth, early termination.
Thank you for the question through the chair. Regarding should a new stadium be built within the city of Regina, there is a cap on the amount of capital investment that the city will pay back. So the cap is $3.75 million. And the value of the capital is depreciated. So if, for example, the Red Sox were to build a new dugout, that dugout, let's say it has a 20-year life, they're there for 10 years, we will pay half of the capital of that when it is rebuilt. And we will only pay for capital that is for like what we would consider a community level of play or a municipal level ball diamond. So if they were to invest in a weight room, let's say, or 1,000 extra seats, we don't need that for any user other than the Red Sox. So that wouldn't be something that we would be willing to repay should there be a move. And so that's all outlined in the terms of the lease. And each capital amenity that is discussed will be discussed between the Red Sox and the city, and will determine at the time, does this meet municipal level? What is the rate of depreciation on this particular asset? And so we should be relatively clear, should a new field be built, when we will be paying the, like how much of the 3.75 we'll be paying.
Mhm.
And it's also to be noted that we don't have to pay it the first year. I believe there's 3 years we have to repay that to allow us to go through a budget cycle to get the funds to make that repayment.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
You have additional questions about maintenance?
Yep.
Would you be able to clarify what specifically you would like to know about maintenance?
Well, you kind of touched on it with the upgrades, so maybe maintenance and upgrades are similar, I would think. Yeah.
The lessee will be fully responsible for the maintenance of the facility. So things like dragging the diamond, cutting the outfield, aerating, those
Yeah.
types of things, custodial will all move to the lessee.
Okay. Insurance, revenue sharing, investment reimbursement. Who's responsible for insurance? I'm assuming they are. Do we have some too? How does that work? I'm just curious.
Ms. Williams will answer the question about insurance.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you. Through the chair. So the Regina Red Sox are to maintain during the term insurance comprehensive general liability with limits of not less than $5 million for each occurrence, tenant and property insurance, and the city is named as an additional insurer in that policy. The city is named as the additional insured for host liquor liability coverage as needed. Cost of insurance is the responsibility of the Regina Red Sox.
Okay, thank you. Any revenue sharing agreement in the lease?
Thank you. And through the chair, the lease contemplates that the lessee will receive the revenue from renting out Curry Field to other users.
Okay, so there is no investment reimbursement then, I suppose? There's no revenue coming in? What is
Correct.
coming in?
The city will not have revenue coming in from this facility. We will be paying them the operation and maintenance amount considered in the report.
Okay. Thank you for that information.
Thank you, Councillor. We've got 3 minutes before a mandatory break, so I'm looking to my colleagues if you just want to forego lunch and just carry on with this piece. And just to wrap this Curry Field up. Councillor Adams? Everyone good? Okay. Everyone good? Okay, we're just going to keep on going until we wrap up this this section. Councillor Adams, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I am in support of this. I don't really have any questions for administration, other than this is just to note that this was approved by previous council in June of 2024, and this is great for where we're at, and good work over the last few years. Happy to see this is happening in Ward 7 as well. And it supports the strategic priorities of vibrancy. This focuses on providing residents access to year-round inclusive spaces and programs that support sports, culture, and recreation and well-being. Upgrades, updating the field is also hopeful for the community, and I'd like to thank you all for the work that you've done on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rasevich.
Through the chair, just kind of follow up on Councillor Seekle's, some of his questions. Just so in 2027, Red Sox, they're taking over the maintenance and the, I guess, operational services. That's correct, right?
Ms. Burton?
The city, we did it before, but now they're taking that over, right?
Thank you, and through the chair, that's correct. So for the 2026 season, the city will continue doing the operations and maintenance just based on the time that this is coming forward, because the season has already started. And then starting at the end of this year, that will transition to the lessee.
Okay. And property taxes, they're paying library and school taxes? Is that correct?
That is correct. So currently, because it's city-owned and operated, there are no taxes levied. But when we lease out space, we have to assess how that's done. And so this would be taxable. We've agreed to give the lessee a grant for the municipal taxes, and then they would have to continue to pay the library and school portion.
And that's because that's the 110,000?
No, the 110,000 is what we're paying them to offset the fact that we are no longer maintaining this facility.
Okay, and that's new. That's starting in 2027, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull.
I'm just digesting that information. So the new thing is that there'll be a grant for the taxes, but they are taking over the operations. So is that sort of just to get in line with the new Branch Real Deal, sort of? Is it sort of aligned to that? Or is it like how?
Thank you. And through the chair, the details of them taking over the operations of Curryfield were directed by council through a notice of motion, and then the terms of the lease were approved in October of 2024. So I think that, well, there has been advancement with the deal at Real. That was not the intent of this lease agreement. It didn't really weigh into it.
But it is sort of similar how the International Trade Center will sort of be sort of where they do the maintenance and get a grant, or no, that's not it. Sorry, maybe I'm off and my comparisons are wrong. So in our books, is it going to cost us less going forward? Like, how will it make a difference in our budget going forward, these changes?
These changes will be essentially revenue neutral.
So they'll be revenue neutral to previous before. They're just more like dotting the I's and crossing the T's and putting things in different places.
Correct. So previously, the city would have, with our staff, maintained and operated Curryfield and would have taken in the rental revenue from both the Red Sox and other users. In this instance, we're paying them to operate and maintain it, and they will keep the rental revenue, but it is revenue neutral.
Okay, so just stuff is moving around, but it ends up being neutral. And then I really appreciate putting a cap on the changes here. I think that's a really good add. It's always scary not to have a cap on that, so I really appreciate that. And then when they are taking over the leases, is there going to be any consideration or with sort of our own accessibility or affordability or any of our own sort of what we would typically do? For example, the little hockey things we've had issues with at Brant with Young Guns and all of that. Are we opening ourselves up to another situation?
So I think with respect to other users of Curryfield, they will have rental permits with the lessee for the time. We have protections in the lease that they will offer that time to those other users because, of course, the Red Sox don't use that field all the time. They do get to set the rates for those users, but and then for upgrades that they would do, they would have to meet any sort of building code requirements. They have to get permits. They have to do those kinds of things, and we have to pre-approve the capital investments.
So for community baseball groups, is there city fields they can use or things so they don't have to pay the lease rates at this particular field?
So assuming that the permit rates increase to the point that a community baseball team couldn't afford to rent Curry Field, then we would work with other partners that operate and maintain other ball fields. The only equivalent other one that we have is Optimist, and it's operated by the Optimist Ball Club. So we would work with them to try to find space at other fields.
Do we see any risk with any limitations due to not having any control of lease costs?
I think that realistically, the risks are going to be, I would argue, are mitigated by the fact that the lessee benefits from having the field used more. So we believe that they will set their permit rates accordingly.
Okay, I think that's it for questions for me, at least this week.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to move to Councillor Mancinelli. Would you like to close debate?
No, I think just a couple comments. Appreciate the term revenue neutral being used, and when you overlay that with the private investment for Curry Field, some of the comments I've heard from the people who are patrons at Curry Field over the years are sometimes less than positive experiences in the past. So to have this being invested in, brought up, and ready for great use, and to be proud of our community, I think is great. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will ask the clerk to start the vote.
Through you, Chair, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to ask for a resolution for private session. Can I have someone move a motion for private session? Councillor Turnbull? Is there anyone opposed? No? Okay, carried. So can I have a motion to recess the meeting until 13:45, which is our 45-minute mandatory lunch break, and at which we will come back for a private session. Anyone? Councillor Adams? Anyone opposed? Okay, carried. See everyone back at 13:05 for a private session.